Hi, I'm Veronique Berman. I'm Chana's science advisor, and it gives me immense pleasure to welcome back Freda Kaplan, Rebbetzin Freda Kaplan. Thank you so much for joining us. It feels like you're next door, but actually you're in Ir HaKodesh. So thank you so much joining us from Israel. Freda, would you like to introduce yourself and tell people a little bit about your connection with Chana?
Okay, so my name's Freda Kaplan, and we just came back to Israel after basically 30 years of communal rabbinics. We started in South America. We've done some communal rabbinics here in Israel. And a year and a half ago, we came back after being 7 years the rabbi in Rebbetzin of Hampstead Garden Suburb Shul in London. And my connection to Chana is on different levels. I was very privileged to be involved with the Chief Rabbi's Maya Not program. And we had some incredible lectures through Chana. Well, Veronique, you were one of the stars, which was really enlightening and eye-opening and helping us understand and appreciate different aspects of of Chana's work. From a personal level, I also, over 30 years ago, I suffered from, I experienced secondary infertility, and I was also asked to be interviewed for the book Unexpected, so I'm actually in the book. And the third part of Chana that for me is the most important is, as a Rebbetzin in a community, I also, first of all, took advice for people in the community and also did referrals. So it's on different levels, but I really think it's a very important organization I feel passionate about.
Thank you, and we so value and cherish your connection with us. Thank you for being interviewed today, for giving us some thoughts, some chizuk, some ideas. In these difficult times, people need to stay positive. We all know that, really more than ever. Would you be happy to share with how you manage to always stay positive and always be smiling?
Okay, so I'm not sure that the word always is a great word. First of all, I think the most important thing to recognize is that I think positivity is relative. It's subjective criteria, and it means for different people different things. And I think that's really important from the beginning to start with that, because I think, people are, especially now with social media, which has its advantages, and we'll probably come to that a bit later on, but you're watching other people and you're thinking, oh my goodness, look at them, look how happy they are, what's going on there, what's happening with me. So I think it is important to realize that it is relative. I am one of my many hats or things is that I'm a medical clown by profession. I studied clowning many years ago, and one of the things I learned with that, and I really believe in it, is I think happiness or positivity is a muscle that we actually need to work at. It doesn't necessarily come easily. Some people it comes easier than others, in the same way as when you do sports. To some people it comes easier than the others, but I think it's something we need to work on. We need to recognize in ourselves what are the things that possibly make us happy, keep us positive, the people we're around, the things we listen to. Sometimes I know lots of people are saying nowadays listening to the news all the time can be actually quite negative.
Detrimental.
Right, exactly. So we have to recognize within ourselves, and I really think it is an inward looking and then hopefully outward shining.
Are there any books or songs or music that you find particularly uplifting or helpful in that area?
So we came back to Israel, as I said, a year and a half ago, but our things only arrived a few months ago. And we've only just started unwrapping all our boxes. And before we left,
so exciting.
Yeah, it really is. So I was given a book that I hadn't had an opportunity to read. And of course, now with lockdown, you suddenly get to do some of the things that you didn't do up until now. And the book is The Choice. By, I've got it here next to me actually, by Edith Edgar. I don't know if you can, and it was a wonderful read that actually was a deep read, and it was one of these things that actually on a loop, I continued reading it. She herself is in her, I think she's still alive. I Googled and I couldn't see, I mean, I think she's still with us. She's in her 90s. She's a psychologist who is a survivor. And through the book, she talks about the different people that she's been treating and how she's been dealing with them, and through that goes into her own story and looking inwards into the things that she went through. She herself, one of her mentors that she talks about is Viktor Frankl, which is A Man's Search for Meaning, which is a wonderful book as well. And I think one of the things that she highlights and talks about a lot is a very Jewish idea is that we can't control circumstances. The only thing we possibly have a slight control, and I'm putting this very carefully because it's not an easy thing, is how we react to things, not how we can control them and make them happen. And the book really highlights that in a beautiful, beautiful way. It's a really easy read and a really enjoyable read. So from a book perspective, that just happened to fall into my lap now, and it really has been a wonderful journey. From a song's perspective, I love Israeli music. I love Yishai Ribo, who is I love the when different verses from the Tanakh are put to music. There's one song in particular that Rav Kook, there's lots of quotations from Rav Kook which are very, very special. There's the song Aleh Lamala Aleh, which is going higher and higher. It's about the fact that each one of us is given some sort of potential, and there are wings that are waiting for us. We're not quite sure where they are and how they are, and we have to choose we need to grab them and try and use them. Again, not easy, but I think listening to it again and again, understanding that there are opportunities.
Yeah, having that music sometimes, music lifts the soul anyway, but you repeat the lyrics again and again, and sometimes probably don't even recognize or realize where those come from. And when you do, it really gives it an extra special lift.
I agree. And I think, well, Rav Shlomo Carlebach has always said that when two people are speaking, they're often saying yes and no, and they're already in an argument. When two people are singing, one singing one note, the other is singing another note, and they're harmonizing, and it brings people together. So
it's a lovely idea. People talk about, and it's not a new idea, but they talk about finding inner strength. What would you say to someone, particularly now, who doesn't feel that they're able to do that, or they're not feeling that they're connecting with their inner strength right now?
So first of all, I think, this on Shabbat, the Shabbat, we read Parshat Kedoshim, and in it is probably one of the most famous verses in the whole Torah, which is Ve'ahavta l'recha kamocha, love your neighbor as yourself. And we're very big on talking how we need to do chesed and generosity out, what we need to do. But I think what we need to first start with is compassion for ourselves. I think we're very good at beating ourselves up and expectations of how we perceive we should be doing. And I think first of all, as I said, we have to be compassionate with ourselves. We have to recognize that, again, this idea of what is strength. I'm going back to what I said before, but I think it is subjective. For each person, it's different things. And for some people at the moment, it might be even just getting up in the morning might demand a lot of inner strength at the moment. But I think what we need to recognize is the moments that we are feeling good during the day. What is it that suddenly brings a smile to our face, or something that we heard, or something that we saw? And this compassion that I'm talking about, I think is also giving ourselves time to take those moments for ourselves. And each one of us should be seeing how we can, almost a little bit of self-indulgent, which always sounds really, really negative, but actually I think it's positive. And I think when you do that, when you have that cup of coffee or glass of wine, or sitting wherever you need to sit, or conversation with somebody, that's your moment to suddenly also look outward, but look inward. So I think above all is this idea of really being compassionate with yourself and understanding there definitely are strengths there. It's sometimes more difficult to find them, and we have to look in and see what they are. And often somebody else might make a comment to us as well, that when somebody gives us a compliment, we're very good at flicking it out, but listening to that as well is also important.
Thank you. There are some people right now who are really, really missing going to shul. They're missing tefillah b'sibur, praying together as a community. How can we maintain connected with our religious beliefs, with our emunah, with our when we can't actually be together? I know that things are changing, please God, quite soon, but at the moment that's where we're at, and the lack of being able to pray together for many is very painful.
Yeah, I completely recognize that. I know there's lots of Zoom things happening all over the place that people are doing, which comes with its own trials. I want to take a step back from what we're saying. I think that sometimes actually structure can be difficult as well. And now that there isn't structure, it opens up other opportunities. I think every new challenge is also an opportunity. And if it means that we can't do things in the formal way we've been doing it till now, then maybe there's also a little bit of room of seeing how we can utilize the informality to enhance what's happening with our spirituality. So I know this idea, it's a little bit of Rabbi Nachman Breslev, but the idea of a conversation with Hashem, and not this, you know, when you're in a shul and everybody's on the same page, or you have to be at the same place that everybody is. So here suddenly there's a very different rhythm going on, which has its advantages as well, and gives us an opportunity to see that. The meeting with each other, I think it's also important to recognize that sometimes even in a room full of people, there are people who feel very lonely in that space as well. It's not a given that we're physically together and therefore we're going to feel close to everybody. And sometimes actually being in a different space, but connecting through the virtual, and somebody really recognizing you and really saying, oh my goodness, you're on Zoom now, and oh, I can see you, it can sometimes feel even closer than being in that room. I as a Rebbetzin, Kiddushim the Kiddush after shul was often quite painful, watching, you know, running around and trying to see the people who were standing on the outskirts, who were on their own, who weren't part of the big conversation. So I would like to think that one of the things we're going to learn from this is actually people experiencing at the moment isolation, and then when you go back into that physical space that we're allowed to go back into, that we're a little bit more empathetic to what it means and what loneliness means. And it doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to be the answer. So I definitely, it resonates, and I can't wait to go back into shul on one level, but I think there's also something quite nice in having this opportunity of doing it slightly differently as well. And we have to be creative within ourselves and for our communities.
Yeah, lessons to be learned. And lessons to be learned.
100%.
There are many situations, and you talk about feeling alone, there are many situations where couples who are struggling with fertility issues, particularly in religious life, can feel quite alone. So, for example, family gatherings or the Chagim or a celebration like a Brit Milah or times like that, where they can feel very, very much alone. When lockdown ends and we're all going to be hopefully going back and doing the situations and the things that we were doing before, some thoughts for these couples, some supportive thoughts or some ideas of how they can cope and how we can support them.
I'd like to start off with how we can support them, because I think that if we start from that understanding, and as I said, the fact that a lot of people at this moment in time are feeling, possibly for the first time in their life, what true isolation means and what these rules are that you can't, and suddenly feeling that pain of being alone. I hope and I pray that that's going to make us more empathetic, that we're going to be able to see the person opposite us and try and understand their suffering in a way that we haven't till now. What I do also think is happening now are, I'd like to think, I'm hearing it from different levels. I'm not quite sure the English with the whole thing of being very stoic and upper lip and all that. And I'm English. I'm English. I was born and bred in England, and I get it. But I do think that there are conversations being had at the moment that are a little bit more soulful, that are a little bit more from a spiritual perspective. And I'd like to think that going back into those, first of all, that people will find a voice to talk about pain in a way that's really, really important. And as I said, if families can understand and appreciate how difficult it is for the couple and what the pain is, and enable them to be with them, whatever that means on whatever level. And if it means that they will come to this simcha, but they won't come to that simcha, a bit more of an understanding why this is happening. And then through that, hopefully we'll do a journey. People will be able to do a journey. But this idea of finding somebody to speak to, I think now especially that people only from their homes are able to make the contact, to speak to whoever they need to speak to, hopefully will be a lesson that when we can see face to face, we'll be able to have good conversations as well. So I actually think that the what's the word I'm looking for in English, that I would love to see that the side of the people who are receiving couples into their smachot, into whatever, will be much more sensitive and make the journey a little bit slightly less painful than it is at the moment. So I'm not sure that's going to happen, but I think it might be something that can be worked on.
Yeah. So I don't know how this panned out in Israel, but here when the lockdown came, along with that came the suspension of all fertility treatments. So for couples who have built themselves up, either to start the treatment or in some cases were already in progress, do you have any words of chizuk, of encouragement for these couples who they've built themselves up emotionally and then everything grounds to a crashing halt?
So first of all, my heart goes out like that. I have to start with that as a premise, because that's really in fact on Israeli radio they were talking about it just today, about how that's going to work with treatments and what that means, and they interviewed some couples, and really, really, really difficult. And as you said, the build up to getting the strength and the courage to say we're actually going to start this journey and it's suddenly halting must be so difficult and so painful, and it's difficult to put into words. I think what the most important thing at the moment anyway, and it's for life, it's not just, is that we never know what's waiting around the corner. We never know what might be happening in half an hour, let alone tomorrow or in 3 weeks' time. And there might have been other reasons why things had to stop or things had to change. I think we have to take each day as it comes, and we have to try and see how can we take today and do something today that might help us in the future. I don't know whether, again, your expertise is much greater than mine, but as far as diet is concerned and sport or whatever it might be, or having that consultation with somebody, and understanding there is going to be an end to this. I don't know when and where it's going to come from. I'm sure there are couples that actually as well, that sometimes you're on that loop of doing a treatment and then another treatment and another treatment, and actually you don't have time to stop. And actually for them at the moment, this stop might be some sort of might be a breath as well. So I think it's, as I said before, it's very difficult to put people in one net. I think each person sees it in a different way. And I'm sure as Hannah is doing, and I saw that you're having, also communication with groups and doing things together and trying to be with them and hopefully continue this journey of strength. And please God, at the end of this, have even more strength than you went into at this thing, understanding that from this chaos, hopefully there will be some sort of light, and we will be able to come together and support each other. And our blessing is that all the answers are going to be answered for good, and that every of this is going to find their voice and find their strength and find their way forward. Not easy, but with Hannah's help, I'm sure this journey is going to continue.
I hope so, absolutely. Thank you. One final question, if I may. For Jewish women the world over, the mikveh represents such an important part of religious life, and it represents new beginnings, it represents hope. After the pandemic is over, how do you think this might influence women? How do you think women will feel about it? Because it has been a topic of discussion during this lockdown period.
So again, I'm going to go back to what I keep saying. It's very difficult to say for everybody it's renewal and it's hope, and I think for a lot of women it's quite a challenge. One of the jobs that I probably enjoyed most in my rabbinic life was actually being a mikveh lady, a balanit. I had a mikveh in Caesarea and it was a real opportunity to have conversations with women in a way that you don't have anywhere else. And for a lot of women, it is struggle, and it doesn't matter where the struggle is coming from. The first reason we do things anyway within Judaism, and especially Orthodox Judaism, is because Hashem commanded us to do it, so we do it. And then the benefit is if we can find something positive within it, well then, wow, we've done well with that. But it's not always easy.
Hit the jackpot.
Yeah, 100%. But what I do think is important to understand is, when I think of a mikvah and I look at the water of a mikvah, I think a mikvah is full of tears and of prayers. It's a place where lots of different women find an opportunity sometimes to take off the masks we wear and all the thing, and just be for a few minutes in that space. And as I said, with a lot of tears and a lot of prayers, I think somebody who's struggling particularly with it, first of all, the first thing to do, and now in England, you're quite privileged to have quite a lot of different mikvahs, which means there's quite a lot of different mikvah ladies, is if somebody is really finding it very, very difficult, is possibly to say, hold on a second, maybe I should try somewhere else. Maybe I should find that mikvah lady that resonates with me, that hears my voice, that I feel comfortable with. And then each time try and go when that particular lady's there. Because it is very difficult to have somebody in front of you who really doesn't want to be in that space, but is doing it because that's what we do. So if we can try and make it more positive, that would be great. But using it as a place, another option of prayer, as we talked about before, that you know, we see sometimes things as structure and we presume it has to be this way, but it's another way of finding our voice in a different way. So please God, as I said before, everybody's prayers should be answered for good, and we should use that muscle of happiness and hope and try and work at it everywhere. But most importantly, be compassionate with ourselves and not hitting ourselves, and enabling ourselves and understanding there are moments when we go down. But if we can take that little time for ourselves, hopefully we'll hear that inner voice, and that the community should really be as compassionate as it can be to one another, so that each person's prayers can be answered and we can come together. Please God for simchas.
Thank you so, so much, Freda. Thank you. Really warming words. Thank you. Be well and look after yourself. And I'm sure we'll speak very, very soon. Thank you.
Bye.